Okay, hello everyone and welcome to our May 2025 update. Thank you for joining us today. Most of you know me, but for those who don't, my name is Peter Mellor and I'm the Software Support Analyst for SuperMate. As usual, our Product Design Manager Reese Hopper will be providing an update on all that's new in the world of SuperMate. We'll also have our General Manager, Quality and Technical Services, Craig Stone, joining us today. As we have a pretty full session, we won't waste any time and jump straight in. I'd like to welcome Craig to provide an update on the SMSF industry. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Peter. Pleased to be involved today and looking forward to making sure we can get everything that we need in our industry update done very quickly so we can get on to Reese's explanation as to the amazing changes that have gone through in the last little while. So approaching 30 June, thought it's worthwhile having a look at our end of financial year planning and looking at the contributions and pensions in our SMSFs and making sure that we can ensure our compliance before we get to 30 June, because after that, it's too late. We're also going to have a look at our process with our external auditors and make sure that we've got our documents in order, as well as including valuations for the likes of property and unlisted investments. So we'll have a look at that, and then we'll wrap up with some discussion around Division 296. So I'm really looking forward to just running through these with everyone today. So if everyone is okay, we'll just race straight into it and get on to the discussions that we've got. So today we want to make sure that as we're looking at our 30th of June run-up, we're going to be looking at our investments. And I just put all this up on the screen first, give everyone an idea of the things that we're looking at here, making sure that we're covering off our investment strategies and reviewing those and updating those if we need to in relation to some of our SMSFs that may have changed strategy during the year, getting in front of the potential audit questions. Always ask the question if we're looking at our income and expenses. So can we push off any income or bring forward expenses? Obviously, we want to make sure we're abiding by the superannuation and tax law, but income deferred or expenses brought forward is tax savings in the current year. So that's always a good thing. Have we had any realised capital gains this year so far? If we have, then we're going to pay tax on that at the super fund tax rate. Can we do anything about that? I always look at our carry forward loss position. If we've got any unrealised losses that we will realise with rebalancing the portfolio, maybe that's something we can think of. And if it's going to be done at some stage in the near future, we may as well do that before the 30th of June. Otherwise, we're going to have that tax bill and then potentially a loss that we have in our following financial year and carrying that forward. Just note here that it can't be a tax-driven strategy, and I'm talking, I know, to those who have experience in this, but just make sure that there are reasons why you might be rebalancing the portfolio, not included in your advice to your clients, so we can save tax. Especially if we're selling some loss-making investments and then immediately buying them back and falling under those Part 4A or wash sale definitions. So let's just be very careful around that and make sure that we've got everything under control on that side. When we look at contributions, just a reminder, if I can get this slide happening correctly, just use my mouse here. There we go. Just a reminder that the contributions that we may have been looking at for our tax returns that we finished off last year, the limits have changed. So non-concessional contributions have now changed to be 120 per annum or 240 or 360 over those 2 or 3 years. So just because we're doing our accounting and tax work for last year, we need to bear in mind those changes have occurred in the current financial year, so we can take advantage of that increased threshold. Hopefully this is not new for anyone. Concessional contributions, again, the history of concessional contributions has gone for the last 12 or 13 years and it's changed almost every year. But this year, contributions are up to that $30,000 limit per individual. And we've got some extra things just to think about when it comes to concessional contributions, which I'm sure our attendees will already be aware, but we have got that carry forward rules from 2019, 2020. If we haven't used the concessional limit and our total super balance is less than 500,000 at the start of this financial year, so 1 July 2024, then we can actually make those contributions contribute and claim as a concessional contribution, and then be able to soak up those unused contributions from prior year. So just quickly go through these here and make sure that everyone's aware of these. And this is a personal thing for me. So we've got to look at our annual contributions, our total contributions, either through our pay slips or MyGov. And if it's employer or personal deductible, it's all treated the same once it's received in the super fund. We do need to look at also looking at an unallocated contribution strategy, which might be something in the future, bring forward those contributions from July into June. So be able to put those into our contribution account in June and allocate them then in July. So we pay tax this year, but it gets allocated to our following financial year limit. And that's quite handy as well with regards to having a lower income in the following year to this year, and we might be able to soak up some of those tax benefits in this year. I've already mentioned carry forward concessional contributions. Maybe there's people on the webinar today that are in a similar situation to me and my wife. Our girls are out the other side of private school now, so now we're finding that there is money at the end of the month, not the other way around. And so with that opens up the scope of going back if I haven't used up some concessional contributions and my total super balance is less than 500. So really important just to check those rules before you go and implement that strategy. Next one is all about taking money out, and this hopefully won't be news to most of the people on the webinar, but our minimum pension based on the 1st of July 2024 age is up in the top right hand corner. There's no discount this year as has been in the previous couple of years, so it's the full 4 or 5 or 6%, so we need to make sure. One thing that we are discussing with clients now is, do we start a pension in this financial year or do we wait, because the transfer balance account is going to be rising to $2 million when we start looking at new pensions. So it's increased 1.6, 1.7, 1.9 now, up to 2 million from this 1st of July. So start pensions now or wait. Again, it's a numbers game and you've got to work through a client situation particularly. Make a mention about transition to retirement pensions as well, just to make sure that people are aware that there's still some benefits. Firstly, if you need access to money to either do a recontribution strategy or additional concessional contributions, maybe this could be used in conjunction with that. And there is no TBA limit, so you could start transition to retirement pension for 10 million if you wanted to. There is no tax exemption on the income, but it does give you the ability to take out that up to 10% of the balance. And you could find with lower balance couples, you might be able to start a transition to retirement pension and pull money out and recontribute for the lower balance spouse. So something there just to think about. And then also really important, make sure that there is no shortfall when it comes to our pensions, because the pension will stop, there's no ECPI, and there's maybe some T-bar issues. And again, if there is a death benefit pension, reversionary pension, or death benefit pension paid on death, then if that ceases, it must be paid out as a lump sum. A couple of comments around audit, and this is something which everyone will probably be more interested about going forward, is the ATO is really looking to make sure that all of our property valuations and valuations of our unlisted investments are done at market value, checked each year. And we know that the ATO is having a focus of this because last year, 16,500 funds was highlighted that had the same valuation on a particular asset with no change over 3 years. So we've got to be really careful that we make sure we've got our files in order. So must be having objective evidence to support the valuation. Final things that we just want to quickly cover off, Division 296, and this is a really quick run through, so please reach out if you need to. basically an additional 15% tax on a portion of the earnings that exceeds a member's balance above 3 million. It's not everything that's above, it's only a portion that relates to that. And it's assessed at 30 June 2026. So if your balance is less than 3 million, you don't need to worry about it. So that's a big thing that I'm telling our clients at the moment. They're saying, should I get money out before 30 June 25? Well, under the proposed law, which didn't get through, we have got another 12 months to go. So there's a few things, obviously, people in the industry know that it's on unrealised capital gains tax. There's no indexation of the $3 million threshold. So we need to be aware that that's possible there to come through, but just make sure that we are all aware of this. And make sure that we're looking at it for our clients. I did put something on LinkedIn the other day, and after 2 days and about 1,154 people looking at it, we got my friend Anthony Cullen put up there, said, yeah, I don't think there's very much tax to pay on this situation. And then the answer was put on another day later, $485 on a 100 grand increase. So let's just not blow it out of proportion. So what do we do? Well, that's my suggestion here. So, Pete, I'll hand back to you and encourage everyone to reach out if you need to, and we can work through those particular situations together. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Craig. So very informative as always. So whilst it is taxing of unrealised capital gains and the limit is not likely to be indexed, is not ideal, it seems that the Div 296 may not actually be the big bad monster we're led to believe it was going to be. So I guess that's a positive. So now I'd like to welcome Reece to provide an update on the May release, as well as a demonstration on how SuperMate can leverage advisor relationships. So over to you, Reece.
Some SuperMate May release items and taking you through the new features we've released relating to advisor relationships. So the May 2025 release did have around 70 items released over the month. So not as high as the previous months, but it's still up there. We've got quite a few good items to go through today. The main four that I'm going to go through is the investment strategy updates, being able to view prior 30 June balances, the inclusion of that ATO EFT code fields into the screens, and fund note history. So I'm just going to share, I'm going to jump into SuperMate to run through the first item, the investment strategy updates. So as you're probably aware, we already had investment strategy monitoring and ability to enter investment strategy into SuperMate, but we've just made a few tweaks and enabled some more, or introduced some more ladder tokens. If I navigate to where the investment strategies are maintained, it's in the asset investment strategy screen. You probably notice that we have a few more options. We now list whether the fund intends to invest in LRBA's collectibles derivatives. We have an option for holding life insurance and whether you want to include benchmarks or not. So previously, benchmarks were mandatory. We found that people, benchmarks aren't mandatory from legislative point of view, and not everyone likes using them. Intends to use them, so we've actually made that voluntary. So if I select edit and I select include benchmark, you can see that we have additional columns for the benchmark. I'm going to untick it because I don't use benchmarks. I can tick whether the fund holds life insurance or if it intends to invest in any of these categories. Under the asset allocation section, I have the new minimum that I want to set and the new maximum. We also show the old, or the current minimum and maximum. So if someone goes through and changes that to 70, but then forgets what it originally was, you can see there that it was always it was 35. So that's updating the investment strategy, asset allocation, and what they're investing in. This feature's not new, but I thought I'd just show it off where you can customize the policy details. So if you are using the investment strategy report that we have in SuperMate, and there's certain policies that you want removed or modified, this is where you modify them. If you have a client that wants to change some wording in a policy, you can easily just locate the policy, select view, then change the wording, and then select customize. So that's how you can update the policies when you run the report. Now, for the people that aren't aware, to generate the investment strategy report, you can always go to the generate report screen. Select generate, run it as per the end of last financial year. And I can see here, I've got a report where it has the investment strategy, minimum maximums. I've unselected benchmarks, so the benchmarks aren't there. It's got all the policies and a spot for trustee signature. Now we are aware that not everyone likes the format of the investment strategy report, or it includes items that people don't want, or it doesn't include items that it doesn't include items that other people want. So we have enabled the ability to use, well, we've created letter tokens that can be used to customize letters to look like an investment strategy, or you can have investment strategy minutes. I go to the letter tokens, type in invest-strat. You can see here are the 11 tokens that we have. There's items where if you have selected to the limited recourse borrowing arrangement, collectibles, derivatives, that will return a yes/no answer, where you can set up if statements in a Word document and include a paragraph based on whether if they are intending to invest in derivatives, you can have a paragraph to say, yes, I intend to invest in derivatives and I understand the risk. We also have asset allocation tables, which are quite handy. How the investment allocation table looks from a letter token point of view. Jump into where the letter templates are. And download this one. This is one where I've just included the table, and you can see I've got a table where I've got the headers. I have the letter tokens, so the one for the asset allocation categories, the minimums, the maximum, and the percentage. And how the tables do work is that you don't have to, in the template itself, you don't have to include a row for every single asset allocation. The system is smart enough, and the tokens are smart enough that based on the number of asset allocations you have, you get a certain number of rows. So you only need to include the header, then the table header, and then which tokens you want to include in the columns. And when you generate the letter, it will look like just generate a letter now. Yeah, it'll look like this, where, and as I mentioned, all asset allocations asset categories have a row for itself, and then the minimum, maximums, the current. There are other tokens for the benchmarks, whether it's within or without a strategy. So you can include those columns if you want. And these ladder tokens are handy because if you have end of year minutes or you want to just do an investment strategy change minute, you can just include the category, the tables or the investment strategy minutes, and you can just fit that into any minutes or letters that you want. They were the changes for the investment strategy. Second item, view prior 30th of June balances. This one might not seem like a big item, but it does have a lot of positive benefits that we've seen in the last month, and it's one of the reasons why we have put this feature in, is that we did get a lot of requests to put a feature like this in, where if you go to the member balances screen prior to the May release, you couldn't look at what was the member balances at the 30th of June of the last closed financial year, but now you can. So if I type in 30th June 2024, I can now see what the member balances were when it was closed. This assists with team leaders reviewing funds, or if you just inside the fund and you want to look at what the unrestricted and preserved or the tax-free tax proportions at the end of the last financial year was, you can now do it. It also helps when transitioning funds onto the system. So you've onboarded the fund, and then you want to see what 30th of June balances you entered. You can type in 30th of June of the prior financial year. I will also point out that it only shows the 30th of June of the prior financial year. So if I type in 1st of January 2000, it will go back to the prior 30th of June. You can't just put in any date. It'll show you the prior 30th of June. The ATO EFT codes, you might remember from my activity statement webinar, when activity statements get downloaded, the ATO actually provides us with the EFT codes for activity statements, and we store it in the system. You can now view in the fund details configuration screen. We now expose the field for the activity statement. So if this one had any activity statements to download, the code would be in this field. And we also have a field for ATO income tax account. And that's where you can put in the EFT code for the income tax account. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to automatically grab that data from the ATO. So it would have to be manually put in, but we now have two fields for it. And now that you have those two fields, once again, you can create letters and use letter tokens to return those fields. So we have the ATO EFT code, income tax account, and then the integrated account number. Where I've seen sites use these letter tokens is if it's the end of year, do an end of year minute or end of year letter. It'll say these are the actions you need to these are the items you need to action. You have an amount payable. Here is the amount, and here is the EFT code to use when making payment to the ATO. And you can put in the bank account details for the ATO, because they very rarely, well, I've never, I think they've been the same for the last 17 years that I've been working on super funds. We also have letter tokens where they can return whether there is a net amount payable or refundable for the year. And you can use if statements to decide whether that paragraph will appear. So if it's a refund, you could say, you due a refund. Once we lodge the annual return, you'll get this deposit in your bank account, or the opposite. If they have an amount to pay, you could say you have a paragraph that says you have amount payable for the year, please pay this amount into this bank account. And you can do this also, you can see here for annual BAS statements or quarterly activity statements. You can also create letters and use those letter tokens to generate the amounts and where to pay it and the codes to use. All right, and then the last one I was going to chat about is the fund note history. As you're probably aware, we allow users to record notes on a fund. Sticky notes will appear at the top of the screen on every screen when you enter a fund, and then general notes. I've seen. Well, I used to use general notes for review points. So you can see here that I've created one for today, and then Joel has come along and modified that note. So we've created greater accountability and transparency on the notes by saying, hey, this is the person who originally created the notes, and then if someone modifies it, who modified it. Just that way, if there's information in that note which you want to clarify, you can see who created the note and who modified it, so you can check in with that person and make sure, or try and get a greater understanding of why that note was entered or the contents of that note. They're the top 4 items I want to talk about the May release. I could be going for ages, but I know that everyone's keen to hear about advisors and how we deal with advisors within SuperMate. There are many benefits for advisors in using advisors correctly in SuperMate. The first one is having a centralized advisor record. And what I mean by that is that, and I'll show you later in the webinar, where you can create an advisor record and then you can maintain their details. And then that advisor record gets added to funds. And it's all, so that one single record gets added to all the different funds. There's only one advisor record that needs to be maintained and selected and created once. Just jump into SuperMate into the advisors section. This is the advisor screen, so it's under settings, advisors, where all the advisors are. You can see which advisors have access to client view, the head office they belong to, the last time they logged into client view. And I'll explain the head office and the advisor relationship or connection later in the webinar. But I'll just quickly open up Frank Brown. He's one of the advisors. I can see here I've got all the contact details, email, phone number, address. There's a section for brand. It's one of the benefits of adding advisors into SuperMate is that you can set up their brand in your site. So if you have a relationship or a partnership or some kind of an agreement with an advisor, that you'll do the SMSF administration for their clients, but they maintain the client relationship, you can set up their brand, and then their logos, etc., all the branding will reflect the funds that advisor is on. And that way the advisor can make it look like, yeah, like I am the one, well, not so much that they're the ones preparing the financials, but it is, hey, these are financials that I've organized to be created for you. You can also see all the funds that are related to that advisor, and based on value, you can export this for the advisor. You can see the advisor assistants that are related to that advisor, and so you only have to maintain that relationship once. And I'll circle back around to advisor assistants because they are quite an important part of the advisor feature. Identifying key relationships. So a benefit of putting advisors into SuperMate is that when you do link them to a fund, I showed before that you can, on that advisor record, you can see all the funds that the advisor is on. You can also do exports out of SuperMate that will contain all the funds and who the advisor is, and you can use pivot tables and other data analytics to figure out, who do I have key relationships with? Hey, 50% of my book belongs with this advisor. 10% of these my funds belong with this advisor. Maybe that'll drive decisions on which advisors or which funds to pick up next. Maybe I'll pick up, if there's a choice between two funds, or this belongs to this advisor, which I have 100 funds with. This fund doesn't belong to an advisor. Well, I want to keep this advisor happy because I have a large number of funds with that advisor. Ease of extracting information or extracting data. And this kind of relates to when it's not so much, hey, which funds they belong to or what the value is. It's kind of, it relates to, hey, I've got a phone call from an advisor, or I've got a meeting with an advisor. I need to provide them with details, or I want to follow them up on certain items. In SuperMate, in any of the screens where there is a fund list, so for example, the end of year tracking screen, we have a fund drop down. I could scroll to the top, select add filter, advisor equals Frank. I can set that filter. When I select search, it's going to return all the funds that Frank Brown is the advisor of. And I can see, okay, yeah, I only have one of your funds at audit, the rest are in progress. I can check the workflow milestones. I should point out with these filters, you can save them. So you don't have to always recreate the filters every time you want to open it, or every time you want to cut the data. So I'll set that filter. If I was on the phone with an advisor and back when I was an accountant, I had a similar bit of feature where I could look up, okay, this is where all your funds are at. While I'm talking to the advisor, I could jump into the queries screen and find my filter and say, hey, Frank, while I have you, I also have, I'm waiting on a 2024 property valuation for the Pollock Super Fund, the broker annual report for Future Super Fund, and bank statements for the Hopper Super Fund. So it's a great way, using advisors in this way is a great way when you are in screens that contain information relating to multiple funds, you can use the advisor filter to look at all the outstanding information, where the workflows are, look at a lot of data and have a quick conversation with the advisor. Another advantage of putting advisors in is that you can use, we have a lot of letter tokens. So advisor, we have 33 letter tokens relating to contact addresses, advisor names. We have a previous advisor concept where, say, if you're looking after a super fund and they're changing advisors, you can still address things. You could create a minute where, or a letter saying, how I've to trustee say, I notice you've changed it from this advisor to this advisor. So basically, you can use these letter tokens in the letter templates to either address correspondence to the advisor, or if you have if the advisor is the one that has the financials and the letters that they provide to the client, you could set up letters on behalf of the advisor and include the advisor details on the letters, sign off as the advisor. You send them the letters, they sign the letter and provide the financials to the client. So it's a great way of value adding if you have that advisor relationship. And I'll just do a quick reminder about report suites and letters. So if you do have an advisor relationship where they only want a certain number of reports, or you've created letters that you would put with the report pack, but you only want it for that advisor, when you are in the report suite editing screen, you can use that advisor, set that advisor relationship to say, only include, so I could set this end of year cover letter to say, only include this cover letter if the relationship, if the advisor is Frank Brown. So it's quite handy to be able to customize your report suites and your letters and be able to send them out without having to modify the letters every time you send them out or modify the correspondence. Client view access and secure document delivery. These two items go hand in hand. If I remember from previous webinars, we've got client view. You can now invite advisors to and their assistants to client view. You can see when they last logged in. Frank Brown here, he doesn't have a last logged in date because he's activated his account, but he hasn't logged in yet. So if I was looking after Frank Brown as an advisor, I saw that, I'd probably pick up the phone and say, hey, Frank, is there an issue here? I can see that you've logged in. Oh, sorry, I can see that you've activated your account, but you haven't logged in yet. Are you having issues accessing client view? If I select client view, the advisor will see what I've shown off in previous webinars, where they can go in, they can look at the fund, they can check queries, they can respond to queries on behalf of the fund, look at all the different details. The difference between advisors and normal trustees, where advisors can have a relationship with multiple funds, where a trustee would generally only have a relationship with one fund, is that the advisor can select the SuperMate symbol and then they get a list of funds that they are the advisors on, and they can just swap between the different funds. The second point that I was showing off before, securely providing documents, as you probably can remember from previous webinars, we have this query functionality. This is quite handy to securely send documents from the accounting firm to the advisor and the advisor back. I know that it's quite popular to email or post documents. Problem with post, slow. It also can get lost. Emails, they are instant, but from a security point of view, they can get intercepted. Emails can get hacked, data can be taken out. Whereas with client view, we are providing a secure portal where advisors can upload documents for the financial year or respond to queries, and that document goes to SuperMate, and we have really strong security where it wouldn't get hacked or it wouldn't get intercepted on the way to SuperMate, because they're putting it straight into SuperMate. The other benefit of providing documents through the client portal is obviously emails tend to have a 10 megabyte limit, whereas in client view, you can control the size of the file that they are providing or can provide. And that way, if you have if the advisor has a year's worth of documents to upload, they can just upload it through the client portal in one query, rather than sending multiple emails or posting a whole heap of paper documents and have to get scanned by your office. Something else I should point out about client view is that we do have some more screens coming for the advisor where they can see data across all their funds in a consolidated view. So similar to in SuperMate, where the accountant can go to the site overview and see how many funds they have in the end of year tracking, the lodging, the contribution caps, pensions, they will be able to see similar data. Obviously, it won't be exactly the same. If I was an advisor, the automation percentage would have no bearings on me. The data feed card provides me with no information. We will be providing them with a site overview that's tailored to what we expect advisors to want to see. And when you are playing around with it, if you have any, and I'll be showing it off in a webinar, probably not next month, but the July, if there are items where you say, oh yeah, like our advisors would love to be able to see this figure or this value from a consolidated point of view, just send that feedback through, let us know. All right, so I've spoken through the benefits of having an advisor and in SuperMate, and how you can leverage having an advisor in the system to speed up your work, customize the reports. But I haven't shown you how to set up advisors or how to add them to funds. So advisors, once again, under the settings, advisor screen, this is where you can modify existing advisors. If I select add, I get a pop-up screen where it has the head office, sub office, and the advisor. SuperMate has a 3-level system for advisors, where the head office is say the highest level. It could be company level, where if I was to use the example here, Future Wealth Advisory, it's a national firm. Future Wealth Advisory, the sub office where that advisor is located, or you could break it up however you want. So yeah, Brisbane, I'll just select it. I can go Brisbane. If there's another office, so say this advisor works out of Sydney, you can use the sub office name and then put in the given name, surname, etc. Save the record. And that's how you create an advisor. The different tiers just enables you to go, okay, well, I've got 4 advisors in the Brisbane office, 4 over here in Sydney. It helps you identify where people are, what the relationship is. If you're having a advisor call relating to the Brisbane office, you cut the data for the Brisbane advisors, or if you want to go up a level and go, I want to look at across the national perspective, you can look from a national point of view. Or if you're just catching up with a single advisor, say Belinda, then I can just cut the data based on Belinda and what her funds are. Once the advisor has been created, you can add assistants to it. So obviously, the advisor quite often owns the relationship, but they have multiple assistants, or they have a assistant or multiple, and you can add as many assistants as you want into this screen. And then when you add an advisor to a fund, those assistants automatically get attached, and that relationship follows the advisor through the different funds. So you don't, and say if Jude left, you could just remove Jude from this screen rather than having to go to every single fund that Jude exists on and remove them manually. So it's a quick way to control the advisor assistance record. But another benefit for having an advisor assistant connected to an advisor is that we do quite often find that it's the advisor assistants that are responding to queries and logging in. The advisor will say, hey, I need this data, and it's the advisor assistant that logs into client view and grabs that data or responds to queries. So whenever an advisor gets allocated to a fund, and you do have to invite the advisor assistant, but once that advisor is attached to a fund, the advisor assistant is attached to the fund, they'll get notifications of queries. They can log into client view and handle anything on the advisor's behalf. Jumping into a fund, I'll jump into future. Actually, I'll jump into the legacy super fund, one that doesn't have an advisor relationship yet. If I jump into fund details, relationships, select add relationship, you can see in the background here there are no advisors or advisor assistants. I can go add this advisor rank from 1st of July 2024, select save, and then you can see Jude automatically got attached to the fund because Jude is Frank's assistant. With the advisor, then I can say they are a previous advisor. They finished up on the 31st of July 24. And Belinda started, let's just say it was the same day. Select save. And then you can see here that the previous advisor is Frank and the current advisor is Belinda. That's how you can control advisor relationships. Circling back, benefits of having an advisor, centralized record that only has to be maintained in one location. Get attached to multiple funds. You can use that relationship to identify who's your key advisor. Ease of extracting data, letter tokens, client view, and securely passing documents between you and the advisor. Now, I covered off the SuperMate May release and the advisor relationships. Now I will pass it back to Peter.
Let's try that. So thanks for that, Reese. Sure you all found that very interesting. So just wanted to remind you that in the SuperMate web, there is a help portal available there that is able to be accessed by clicking the question mark in the top right of your screen and then selecting the help portal to find the answers to frequently asked questions or even just explore the capabilities in web. So Reese has provided a demonstration on advisor relationships in SuperMate, and you've heard from Craig. For those that are not already using new SuperMate, I'm sure you're thinking SuperMate looks really good and is pretty comprehensive, and you guys keep developing more functionality, but I bet it costs a bomb. Well, you may be surprised to know that the basic subscription starts at about $11 per fund per month plus GST, which gives you access to the Macquarie Bank data feed, broker data feed, registry reconciliation with computer share, link market services and boardroom, data hero to read bank statements and create the bank transactions from them, the advisor portal, as you've now just seen from Reese, which all allows technology to do the repeatable, freeing you up to do the remarkable. Not only that, but for just for an additional $4.75 a month, you can get all of this as well as data feeds from over 200 other banks and financial services institutions. In addition, once you've subscribed to SuperMate, you become part of the Super Concepts family and as such have access to our SMSF education services provided by Craig Stone, who you heard from earlier today. So now it's over to you. Is there anything you would like clarification on what has been discussed today? Don't forget to click on the Q&A in the top of your Teams to view and submit your questions. So we've got a couple coming through.
Yeah, I can.
Over to you,
I
Reese.
can probably handle some of these, Peter. There was a question or a comment put into the chat rather than the question section about when I removed the advisor assistant remained on the fund. Yeah, I just noticed that too when I was showing off. I'll have it looked at. It's a bit of a security issue, but it should be designed that it's like when you remove the advisor that the assistant also gets removed. So I'll get that one looked at. There's another question about how do I add a head office business name to an advisor that's already set up. If the advisor's already set up, they should have a head office / business name in the system, and it's just a matter of just modifying it. So reach out to our support team. We can show you how to modify it. But currently, it is a classic. If you jump into classic, you can see the head office and you can modify the head office. It's not in web yet. There's a question on, can I add the advisor details in for a fund and they don't get an invitation to access until I decide? Yes. So for client view access, they only get access to client view if you invite them. So if you add them to if you add the advisor to a bunch of funds, they don't get access to client view. They only get access to client view once you have added them. If the question is, I already have invited them to client view for 20 funds and then I've put on a fund, but I don't want them to see this one fund, there isn't that option. If you don't want them having access to that one fund, I would not put that advisor on that one fund until I'm ready to see that one fund. And last question, for the query screen to send queries or documents between advisors and accountant, does / can an email get sent if something has been loaded in the query screen? How does the advisor know if something that is there unless they log in and see it? So when you, from an accounting point of view, if you have raised a query and then attach a document as a way of sending a document to the advisor, they will get an email notification overnight to say, hey, you have this query to jump in to have and look at. So the advisors do get an email notification if you've raised a query for them to look at a document or sign a document, etc. On the other way coming in, if an advisor uploads a document or raises a query, the documents do appear when an accountant logs into SuperMate. They will see a notification there on the queries and the documents menu item to say there's a document to look at or there's a query to look at. So there is a notification system. We are about to bring in a way of identifying who gets initially contacted and what they get notified on. So there's a difference between queries and alerts. You can decide whether advisors get alerts or not, but I'll talk about that in a couple of months' time once we've released that feature. I think that is all the questions.
Covered it all. That's why we have him on board. He's the guru. And also just like to publicly wish you a happy birthday for yesterday, Reece. I hope it was an enjoyable day.
Thanks, Peter. I did work late, but yeah, it was a good day.
Very good. All right, so if we've got no other questions, thank you all once again for joining. So thanks, Reece, and thanks, Craig, for your input. And don't forget, if you're interested or would like a demonstration that is more specific to the way that your business operates, please get in contact. Thank you very much.